Another one of our focal points on this program is Iran on the verge of attacking Israel with another massive missile attack after the assassination of the Hamas political leader Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran earlier this week. Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei has publicly declared that they will retaliate, and now President Biden has said that the US will bolster Israel's defenses with US military deployments. Once again, the world is on the edge and the crisis in the Middle East appears to be getting out of control. Are we set to see, therefore, phase 2 of Iran's mostly unsuccessful missile strike on Israel anytime now? As I mentioned, Iran's Supreme Leader and the Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah as well have vowed to respond. In the last week, Israel has hit 2 targets, an airstrike on a top Hezbollah leader in Beirut on Tuesday and the targeted hit on Hamas's political leader, Mr. Haniyeh. Reports suggest that US intelligence now believes that an Iranian attack is imperative, but could take a few days to prepare. Now, US forces, including warships and surface-to-air missile units and fighter jets in the region, will back Israel's massive air defense network, among the most advanced in the world. Israel could face coordinated attacks from Iran's proxies, Shia militias in Iraq, Houthis in Yemen, Hamas, the Islamic Jihad, and Hezbollah in Lebanon. Several leading airlines, including Air India, have suspended flights to Israel. Well, joining us now, Dr. Fouad Ezadi, Associate Professor at the Faculty of World Studies at the University of Tehran. Dr. Ezadi, thank you very much for being with us. Does it appear almost inevitable now that Iran will retaliate within a finite period of time?
Yes, I don't think Iran has any choice. If there is no retaliation, this type of attacks will continue. Israelis are engaging in a genocide in Gaza, and they would like to see Tehran turn to another Gaza. And in order to prevent that, Iran, under the UN Charter, has the right to respond. When a country is attacked by another country, that country that's attacked has the right to respond, and that's what Iran is planning to do.
Dr. Ezadi, that would throw Iran and Israel into a war. It's not just for West Asia, but the entire world. We could see something absolutely get out of control. Is that a prospect that we are seriously looking at?
Your voice was cut, so I didn't hear your question. Let me just say that what the Israelis are doing is actually trying to make a bigger war in this part of the world, and they want to fight Iran using American soldiers. They want to have a war between Iran and the United States, and that's the only way they think they can win. They have been trying to fight with a militia group in Gaza, a militia group that doesn't have any air force, doesn't have any sophisticated weapons, and they have failed. And they have all the support from the United States.
Dr. Ezadi, let me ask you this. The Iranian perspective, the Israeli perspective, of course, is dramatically different. They say that they're targeted by Hamas, by Hezbollah, by Islamic Jihad, by Houthis and proxies operating in Iraq as well. They come under missile attacks and rocket attacks just recently from Lebanon as well. They've lost thousands of their citizens after the initial attack in October last year. Now, I do know the tragedy in Gaza. It is ghastly what is taking place. But Israel says that they have been attacked and they continue to be attacked. In a situation like this, if you have a Hamas operative in Tehran, how does it help things?
You know, Mr. Haniyeh was negotiating to reach peace. You know, in India, you're intelligent enough, of course, to realize that if in the middle of negotiations, you kill the representative of the other side, you're not interested in peace, you're interested in war. And the tragedy started in 1948 with the occupation of Palestine. And the Israelis have been engaging in criminal activities and massacres and violation of international law for the last 76 years. Israel is an apartheid terrorist state. And having a genocidal regime in this part of the world, in Asia, is not good for Iran, it's not good for India, it's not good for anybody. These are not legitimate. Israel is not a legitimate government. They are engaging in activities that should be uploading to many people all around the world.
Dr. Zadi, thank you very much for joining us and sharing that perspective. I'm now joined by Adam Scott Bellos, CEO of the Israel Innovation Fund. Thanks, Mr. Bellos, very much for being with us. It just seems like a frightening reminder of what took place a couple of months back when Israel was preparing for Iranian missile strikes. Is it almost inevitable that that's going to come, and is Israel preparing for that?
Yeah, I'm actually kind of disappointed that you didn't leave the other gentleman on the screen for us to discuss the horrible, disgusting things he just said about my country, and the false claims that he just laid on us being a racist, apartheid, illegitimate state when the Islamic Republic is considered an occupying force of the Persian people. Let me just say that first, and is the world's largest sponsor of terror and the clear destabilizer of the entire Middle East, which is why the Abraham Alliance has come together. Yes, of course, a Iranian attack or an Iranian response is probably inevitable given the embarrassment that they have suffered over the last week, considering the fact that we are fighting this war in a way to prevent as many civilian casualties as possible. If we weren't, we would have carpet bombed the entire Gaza Strip right after October 7th. We would be carpet bombing Lebanon. We would be carpet bombing Yemen and the Houthis, and we would be sending very strong weapons over to Iran. The last Iranian attack failed by 99%. So listening to the propaganda of the brainwashed member and supporter of the Islamic Republic of Iran, the gentleman that was on before me, was quite laughable, to be completely honest. And while we are ready for an attack from Iran, I do not see it being successful, similar to the way they failed months ago. And I think that's very important to understand. There's this constant twisting of propaganda, calling Haniyeh a man of peace when he was celebrating the October 7th massacre, and was living in Doha in the Four Seasons or the Ritz-Carlton in a penthouse with a net worth of $4 billion, while Palestinians in Gaza are suffering without food and Hamas is preventing their civilians from getting aid.
Mr. Bellos, let me ask you, the
Sure.
real worry is not just for West Asia, but for the entire world, that if there is an active war between Iran and Israel, it can easily spiral out of control. And that ultimately when it comes to war, ultimately when it comes to war...
I lost the sound?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
I can't hear you.
All right, we'll just fix that line with him in half a second. All right, you can hear me now, Adam?
Sorry, your sound went out. My apologies.
No,
I can hear you.
It's probably a technical problem at this end. No, my question was this. In as much as I understand, your perspective and where you come from, you can't right-size a conflict. Neither Israel can nor Iran can. Thus far, when it's come to these missile attacks, fortunately, it's not really hit very many people in your country. There's not been very much in terms of your attacks on Iran either. In the future, if this goes
12
wrong,
children were just killed in the north. 12 children were just massacred.
I'm talking about
in
the
north.
major attack by hundreds of Israeli cruise missiles, Iranian cruise missiles, and ballistic missiles. The worry for the world, right, is that if things go wrong and if there is a loss of life, which isn't right size, because you can't every time do that in a military conflict, we could be staring at a much larger conflict. Is that your concern as well?
I think that's been the concern of Israel for almost 20 years, as our prime minister, who, by the way, is not a perfect man and is not a perfect politician and is not a perfect prime minister, but who has for the last 20 years warned the world about the Islamic Republic's need, want, and energy to try to achieve nuclear power in order to become a war-making machine, which has really very much been what the Iranian regime, the Islamic Republic, has tried to do for many years. I mean, all you need to do is look at the way the people of Israel live and the way the Iranian people are subjugated. And that is the difference between the type of countries that are at conflict right now. And the fact that the Americans tried to bring the Islamic Republic into the family of nations when it's not a democracy, it's a theocratic, dictatorial, eschatological, apocalyptic regime, okay, is absolutely irresponsible and has continued to lead to this conflict. We are in the 21st century. We are in a place where all humans should be treated equally with electricity, running water, internet, and food to be able to put on their table. And if anything, the Islamic Republic is preventing that stability from spreading to the rest of Asia and the Middle East.
No, but Adam,
there is only one
the
major
counter argument to that. And you know, we live. I'm talking to you from New Delhi. We are victims of terrorism in this country for the longest time.
Yeah.
But the point is, when you talk about internet and electricity and supplies, if you look at the situation in Gaza, the fact of the matter is Israel's response has been disproportionate to the extent that up to 40,000 people have lost their lives. All right, we'll try and get that back in just a second. All right. You know, I'm just talking about...
You're saying the situation in Gaza?
Yes, please go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Right. Yeah, no, I mean, I completely understand. That's probably why you shouldn't rip the water pipes out of the ground in order to build tunnels. Okay, I mean, let's face it. The
40,000, 50,000 casualties. And no one is justifying or condoning anything.
First of all, that's an incorrect number. There's no proof to 40,000. There's maybe even 20,000 over 9 months. And we also know that Hamas uses human shields. So, I mean, let's look at the situation honestly for a second. We know, based on the statements of the leaders of Hamas, that they prefer to use human shields. Okay, they've said it themselves. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu quoted those leaders in his speech to Congress recently. We know for a fact that the water pipes were ripped out of the ground to prevent running water in order to build more tunnels. We know that the Hamas leaders, and including the original founders of the PLO and Fatah, all became millionaires and billionaires, and millions, if not billions, of international aid went missing.
Right.
The cost of rebuilding Palestine over and over, or Gaza over and over again, is almost triple to what the Marshall Plan cost per person to rebuild all of Europe after World War II. Something doesn't make sense. You have a country that, against all odds, has been attacked on all sides since 1948 until making peace with certain countries, that has become one of the richest and most successful countries in the world. Yet you're going to tell me that a country that has received billions and billions of dollars from all over the world, including the EU, the United States, South America, China, and Russia, and there's no electricity and there's no water? For 9 months, I've been hearing there's no electricity. How is social media coming out from Gaza if there's no electricity?
All right. Okay.
Explain that to me. This is a very basic,
Adam, I think both of us would agree that the loss of life of innocent people who are not in any way affiliated with terrorist groups in any part of the world is deeply unfortunate.
I completely agree.
And so on that note, Adam,
and the hardest thing for Israelis,
I need to start wrapping this up, and I do appreciate your perspective entirely. And I would love to speak to you again. Thank you very much for being with us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much.